And yes, we are live. So, hi everybody.
Hi.
We have half of our panel. So I don't care though. I'm happy with whoever comes, and if they don't make it, they don't make it, and I'm totally fine with that too. So it is what it is, right? So tonight we're talking about JFK Conspiracy. Um, there was a lot of shows on when I first decided to do this. I was watching all these shows. I don't know why they were all on. I don't remember when it was. Um, but I was watching all these shows about it. I remember when I was little, I was obsessed. I was drawing pictures, like I would write about JFK, like was watching the all the shows, all the videos. I was like so obsessed with the whole thing. And I kind of like lost touch with it, for a little bit. And then I started watching the shows again. I'm like, why isn't there a show about I want to do a show about this so bad. So I'm happy that everybody decided they wanted to join in on that. So really quick, just in case, can we just go around the table and just let everybody know who you are and um, all this and that? And Brian, I wanted to say thank you for your service. You just are freshly retired from the military.
Yes,
So
thank you.
thank you for your service, um, and your family as well. Thank them. But anyways, let's go around the room. They all know me, so you guys start. Aaron, you can go first.
Oh, me? I'm
Yeah.
Erin Bush. Um, I'm here for humor. No, I'm just teasing. I've always been fascinated by JFK's assassination. My mom always used to talk about it as a kid because her birthday was the day before. So our family's always kind of had a fascination with what actually happened that day. I am new to the paranormal field. I work for Roger and Andrea Perrin. And I do some content design for a couple of different people, and I do some freelance admin work, but I'm here to learn. So that's my gig today.
Go ahead, Chris. For anybody that doesn't know Chris.
My name is Christopher de Cesare. They call me the Ghost of Geneseo. It was the epicenter of the extreme haunting back in the 1980s at Geneseo, New York, where I got to meet Ed Lorraine Warren. Very cool. You might have seen me on Sci-Fi or Travel Channel, but I'm a history teacher for high school in New York State, and over the years, I developed an interest in the JFK assassination, talking to the chief of security at Chemical Bank, who was a former Secret Service agent, and he got me on this trail of investigating. And so I reached out to some of the people that you read about in books and talked with them before they passed away. So I'm happy to be here.
Wow.
Yes, I'm very happy. That's awesome and that's what he said. He told me, he said, if I've spoken to some people, and they totally are. He's got some good info, so I'm really really looking forward to it. Uh, Mark, I don't know if you know anybody.
No.
This is my
Good
friend
evening,
Mark.
everyone. Evening, everyone. My name is Mark Siegel. Um, I've always been into this kind of stuff in the JFK assassinations. I got some old magazines back from the 60s that my grandparents got, and also from my dad. So I just been interested in all that stuff when watching the JFK video from Oliver Stone. So it's just something that I have a passion for. So looking forward to it.
Oh, you're also a reenactor. Did you say that? I was sharing the
No.
video. So you're
Yep.
you do reenactment Civil Wars.
Yep, Civil War, Vietnam reenacting. I got a huge Vietnam reenactment in Peoria, Illinois this weekend. Looking
Oh,
forward to it.
Awesome. Yeah, you do awesome with that stuff. But you're also who's your team? Did you say that?
Oh, yeah, I have a paranormal team. It's called Living Histories Mysteries. Also, I collaborate with Midwest Parahistoric Society. We collaborate with like 3 or 4 different paranormal teams in the area, and we just do cemeteries, historical buildings. I've been doing paranormal for going on almost 3 years now.
Yeah. And we were talking one day and he's like, the research he does, Kenny Biddle would be like, I want this guy on my team. I mean, and it's all like it is like he says I have books and it's all dated and in alphabetical order and researcher. So I'm excited to have Mark on too. All right, Brian.
I am Brian Cantu, and as Taryn just said, I just retired from the military back in March. Um,
I've been in the paranormal for, well, probably pretty much all my life. I'm a psychic medium. I do remote viewing. I've helped paranormal teams across the country. I've helped with law enforcement and giving families closure on, usually it's the murder of their children. And also I have a degree in criminology, and I've studied the mafia for almost 30 years, off and on, not consistently. And I've researched JFK, and I'm going off of memory, so I hope my memory doesn't fail me.
Oh no. No.
He froze.
He froze. Darn it.
There's the government again.
Yeah.
What? Say it quickly.
Well, there's too many psychics on this panel at the moment, right?
Oh, Brian, you froze a little bit. You said that you I think you were saying criminology, and then you said,
Yeah. Sorry, it says that my internet is a little weak. That's why I moved from one room to the other.
yeah.
My internet is close, and I'm still having issues.
Oh, you studied the mafia for 30 years.
So yeah, I studied the mafia. I used to be stationed in Sicily, and I became fascinated, pretty much obsessed with the mafia. And I've read probably close to 300 books on the mafia. I listened to podcasts. I love history. Both my parents were very much into history, and they took me all over the globe since I was a little kid.
That's
And
awesome.
We always, it was always a historical learning trip for me.
But your favorite place is Gettysburg, right?
That is one of them. That's part of Years of Night and my connection.
So that's interesting, because I also was obsessed with the mafia and JFK. So I don't know if the two, like, I was fascinated by John Gotti, all those, big, all that. I mean, I don't know if it's like that whole that, oh, they possibly could have been, some people believe they were involved with it, maybe how they kind of intertwined with each other. But I'm the same way. I used to be obsessed for sure. So, funny.
Oh, also, I have to
Yes.
say before you start, if you hear any snoring, the dog. So it's just unavoidable. But in case you hear any odd noises coming from this end of the screen, I have a very snory boxer, so I want to apologize in advance.
No, that's awesome. Yeah, I mean, I have cats. You don't hear they snore, but you don't hear it. So I never have to say, "Oh, my cat's gonna start snoring."
This is what I'm working with.
Aw.
Big day at the beach today.
So if we want, we can quickly just go around and just say who we think did it or who was involved, and then maybe we can you guys can just say, like, whatever research, whatever you guys want to say about it, and then we can just discuss it and take some questions. I definitely think that I'll say mine first because it'll be quick. I think Lee Harvey Oswald was, in fact, like a patsy. And if, like, the Oliver Stone film, Mark, you brought it up, he literally convinced me that is what happened. It was so good. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like there was probably only a couple of government people maybe involved, but I don't think it was as big of a government thing. Maybe I could be wrong. I don't know, but it's crazy. I don't think the mafia, maybe they had to help out a little bit because I'm sure some of the people involved were on their payroll. But I definitely think that Lee Harvey Oswald couldn't have done that
So
just by himself.
I put together a few notes. Usually when there's an assassination, you always have to look at who benefits. In this case, the mafia would benefit. The CIA would benefit. Well, actually, I'm going to actually start over. The mafia would benefit, and the reason why is JFK and his brother Robert Kennedy were they were pretty much installed in the White House with the help of the mafia. Sam Giancana of Chicago, he got Joe Kennedy was a bootlegger, and he knew pretty much all the mafia heads, all the main players since Prohibition. Since before Prohibition, they used a lot of Joe Kennedy's trucks for bringing the booze over from Canada. Another thing with the mafia is that after the actually let me backtrack a little bit also. The mafia also they helped put him into power. They supplied the Teamsters votes. Sorry, I have a kitten that's attacking me at the same time.
No. You could have worse problems.
Yeah. So anyways, Sam Giancana of Chicago, he was very much he pretty much ruled the Teamsters and Hoffa at the time. And anyway, they delivered a lot of the key votes, key states, Illinois being one of them, West Virginia being another. West Virginia those were the two key battlegrounds. And they delivered those votes that actually put him over the top, over his opponent.
Mm-hmm.
The CIA, that's another group that had something to benefit. Kennedy in 1960, 61, he had vowed to pretty much to splinter the CIA into 1,000 pieces and scatter them to the winds. That was one of his quotes. LBJ, he and the Kennedys did not get along whatsoever.
I knew that.
There was well-known screaming matches between mainly Robert Kennedy and LBJ. And Robert Kennedy would actually yell at him, saying the only reason you're even in office is because of all the dead voters that put you in there. So basically cheating.
Oh, wow.
Also Cuba. Cuba was, after the revolution in 1959, they had strong ties to the Soviet Union, and they were very much in the heart of the Red Scare. And Kennedy was one of the main opponents. He was in power, obviously, and they were doing everything they could to stop the spread of communism, and especially because it hit so close to home, 90 miles off of our coast. Also Jimmy Hoffa, because they were investigating the Teamsters, the unions, AFL-CIO, and Hoffa was in their crosshairs. So there's theories on Hoffa being instrumental in this as well, and also
I never heard that.
And also the Soviet Union, because I mean, East versus West, capitalism versus communism, and the Soviets were putting their missiles in Cuba, which was, like I said, 90 miles from our border. So that I put that together, and I have a lot more broken down, but I also don't want to hog the screen. So anyone else can jump in.
It's interesting because, like I said, it wasn't just one. Lee Harvey Oswald couldn't have pulled that off. Like, it's just no way. It wouldn't have happened. Like I said, I think there were people that had to be like a group effort from different places, So I understand the whole mafia thing, and I get the CIA thing, and definitely LBJ. But I've always said that because I knew he did not like Kennedy. You know what I mean? No, I said maybe not. He could help move some things around, obviously. You know what I mean? So, Mark?
Adding to what Brian says, I know the Russians did not care for Kennedy as well. Yeah. And then also there was a group called the Wisconsin Minutemen. They wanted to go down to Cuba and fight. And I guess Kennedy got a hold of it and told them no. And pretty much they did not like Kennedy as well. Well, I'm not sure if you heard about them or not.
Yes.
No, but like I feel like you'd have to have not like, I'm not saying this disrespectfully, but I'm like I feel like you'd have to have more than just not liking somebody. Like how many people hate Trump, right? I mean, seriously, like everybody, there's so many people that despise the man, but um, there's to be able to assassinate the president of the United States, you know what I mean, and it still be in question as to who did it because Lee Harvey Oswald never went to trial, so you're innocent until proven guilty. So he never was. He could. He never. I mean, he claimed to be innocent, but there was never any trial. There was never any anything. So um, I think there would have to be some really like some big stuff to be able to one pull that off, keep it quiet, and not get caught at all.
So with that, with those that would benefit uh, from the assassination of Kennedy, you also have to look at who has the means in order to pull off something of this big, and also the means to cover it up.
Exactly.
So the mafia, they truly hated him. There was three main players. I mean, there's a lot of players, but there was the three main players in this were Sam Giancana of Chicago. He was the boss of Chicago, and as I said earlier, he was the one who also helped deliver the votes in Illinois and West Virginia. And Santo Trafficante, he was another one. Santo Trafficante had a big
Should just cue the Jeopardy music every time he freezes.
I feel bad because it was interesting stuff.
Yeah. He's back.
You said he had a big, and then my mind, I was like, he had a big what?
Sorry, my internet still keeps fading in and out.
That's okay.
Santo Trafficante, he was the boss of Florida. He had a lot of interest in Cuba, the gambling interests. All the five families, Chicago, they ruled the gambling world in Chicago. In Cuba. Cuba had a very corrupt leader in Bautista, and Santo Trafficante, he had one of the biggest interests in Cuba. So when after the revolution, it was important for him to try to get those interests back because that was millions, if not billions, of dollars that the mafia was losing under Castro, and he was actually one of the ones that was arrested under Castro in Cuba for being a mobster, and his last name Traficante means trafficker in Spanish. So they also saw him as somebody who was trafficking stuff into Cuba, which would harm the Cuban people. But a name is a name.
Right.
The other one who is probably the most seen as the most guilty person as far as the mafia goes is a man named Carlos Marcello. He was the boss of the New Orleans family, and he had a huge grudge against the Kennedys, especially Robert Kennedy, and he was quoted as saying, "If you cut off the head, the body will fall." But in 1961, Robert Kennedy actually had Carlos Marcello abducted in his sleep, in his pajamas, and he was dumped with the Air Force C-130 aircraft down in Guatemala, and he was abandoned there with no means, literally in his pajamas and slippers, and he vowed revenge on the Kennedys.
Really?
Yeah.
Why did he do that? Why did he have him kidnapped?
Because Robert Kennedy, well, first of all, Marcello and a lot of those old mobsters, they never applied for citizenship when they moved here as kids with their families, so they weren't actual U.S. citizens. And Carlos Marcello, he pretty much ruled the South, including Dallas. Dallas belonged to New Orleans. Jack Ruby actually was he ran a place called the Carousel, which was under the mob control of New Orleans and Marcello. But Robert Kennedy, he's the one that he pretty much went after first and hardest. And
Wow.
so
So
that's what
Robert
I
actually pissed a lot of people off.
Sorry, I didn't hear him. My volume's up as high as it goes. I'm still having a hard time hearing.
Oh, I said, so Robert was actually the one that really pissed a lot of people off.
Yes, pretty much. But the entire mafia felt betrayed since they helped put Kennedy into power, and they didn't get what they wanted. They thought they would own the White House. Instead, the Kennedy brothers went after the mafia.
Right. Well, that makes sense. Mark, did you agree with, is that what you said to add to what Brian said? Like, you agree with he said and you were just like adding to it? I didn't mean to cut you off. Right?
Oh no, you're fine. No, I just wanted to add on a couple more groups to what Brian was saying. So, but yeah, on my recollection and stuff, everyone knows there's 3 shots that supposedly fired on Kennedy, but to me, I think the 3rd shot was a tragic accident.
You think you think there was only 3 shots?
There was 3 shots. The 3rd shot was a tragic accident to what I've been researching stuff. There is a person by the name of Howard Donahue that did a documentary, and he pretty much took apart the whole.
Do you guys hear that? It
Yeah.
sounds like the aliens and signs.
The CIA is listening.
Right? Go ahead, Mark. Sorry.
But no, I was saying Howard Donahue. He did a documentary a few years ago, and he pretty much took apart the whole JFK assassination. He talked to witnesses and everything else. We all know that the first shot was shot by Oswald. The bullet missed, ricocheted, the fragment hit the president. A special agent by the name of George Hickey. He heard the gunshots. He looked over and saw the 6th floor of the library. And as he was trying to draw out his AR-15, he heard a second shot entering from Oswald's rifle. Hits the president in the back and exits through the neck. Now, what Hickey did was he picked up his AR-15 to return fire, pulls the safety off, and as he was going to pull the rifle out, the follow-up car lunges forward. He loses his balance and accidentally pulls the trigger, hitting the president in the head. I'm not sure if you heard that side of the story yet or not.
But I don't believe it because I feel like everybody would have heard that gun go off. Everybody around there, everybody would have seen something, heard, like they're so loud, and that was like right in everybody's ears, and I think everybody would have known where the shot came from if that was the case.
Right. But,
I do.
Well, during in the hospital, a lot of the secret agents, the secret services, all around around the president, taking pictures, telling the doctors what to do, what not to do, because they all thought that the one that killed Kennedy was one of their own, and they didn't want to have that announced and everything. So
I mean that makes sense with them, but it was also the president who was assassinated by probably half of them knew who,
right,
and didn't want to, get that out. That makes sense, I guess. But I still don't think it was that guy.
You don't think it was Hickey with the AR-15?
Chris?
I have so much to say. This would probably be a 7-hour discussion.
I know.
I taught a course on the assassination, a half-year course with my student in high school examining the assassination. And during that time, I reached out and was very fortunate to talk to some of the people who were part of the government establishment back then, people who knew Johnson and Kennedy and things like that. But my first understanding was my great-grandfather was a bootlegger during Prohibition. And he ran the bootleg whiskey from Montreal to Lake George, Saratoga area, down to Newburgh, Poughkeepsie, and out to Danbury. and the Kennedys actually hijacked the truck and had my great grandfather at gunpoint. And luckily Dutch Schultz made a phone call, and that was okay. So I recall hearing my family talk about how the day Kennedy was shot, they raised the glass and said "Salute," because it was a long time in coming. So that was the first time I heard anything about that as a kid, other than history books. I think that it's easy to speculate, and there's so many theories, but I think primary sources are the key. I've been very lucky to talk to a number of primary sources. James Tague was hit by the bullet fragment in the cheek in Dealey Plaza. I corresponded with him, and people sometimes don't believe me, but this is an envelope from him. I don't know if you can see that's his little address there like that. He passed away, though. He passed away, I believe it was 2014. And Billy Celestes, who was Lyndon Johnson's business guy, all right, he was cool. He hid away in France for a while and talked to me about what he knew about the cotton scandal that was going to take Johnson off the ticket in '63. I talked to a gentleman who was the head of security for Chemical Bank in the '90s, who was an ex-Secret Service agent. I can't use his name. I wish I could. I'm not allowed to do that. And then, of course, I've spoken to Lee Harvey Oswald's girlfriend, Judith Berry Baker, who is very active still in trying to get his name cleared from the whole mess. There are so many things that are fascinating about it. And one thing I've learned, though, is that aside from the voters, the government hated Kennedy. The CIA hated him. The Air Force hated him. The oil businessmen with the oil allowance hated him. The folks involved in the Bay of Pigs, the Operation Mongoose, hated him. Some of the Catholic ministers hated him for, knowingly having girlfriends and abortions and things, the first Catholic. People loved him for the media, but people actually knew him were not very enamored with him, which is why he was in Dallas trying to run again for president with his hair out there looking all nice, so he knew he had some weaknesses. There's some things that people should think about. The first thing is J.D. Tippit and JFK. They're both shot the same. There's a composite photo of the two of them. J.D. Tippit right over here. And here's Kennedy. Well, people can research that, what happened to him on the same day, and talking about Jackie Kennedy saying, "That's not my husband" in the casket. About the idea of the plastic surgery. People can look up a fellow named David Ferry, who actually was piloted with Carlos Marcello. He had alopecia, and he was in Civil Air Patrol with Lee Harvey Oswald. He's a good person to look up and see what he had to say about those things. James Tague said that the shot that hit him came from the grassy knoll. No question about it. The monument area. That's where the shot that hit him came from. Most people that I talked to who were involved in this in some peripheral way said that Malcolm Wallace was the shooter in the 6th floor, not Lee Harvey Oswald. He had the powder on his hands. He was a JFK associate. He actually was indicted for murder, and Lyndon Johnson had him taken out, and he became his right-hand man basically during these days. The best book I can recommend to people, if you want that, is called The Men on the 6th Floor. Very good book. It's possibly the most interesting in terms of what happened with the evidence that day. The FBI did actually realize that Malcolm Wallace's fingerprint was lifted from the sniper's nest, but the FBI delayed their findings on that for about 15, 20 years. So, you'll see that there. Judith Berry Baker and some of the others claim that Oswald was truly a patsy, truly. Weird thing about some of the things I read about is that David Ferry, who was the gentleman who worked for Marcello, he actually had Lee Harvey Oswald's, and this is in the film as well, JFK by Stone, a library card in there. But fascinating things. I can talk for hours. I don't want to do that, but I tell people to examine primary sources, try to understand the larger picture. And I think it was Brown who said, "Who benefits? Who benefits?" According to Lyndon Johnson's ex-mistress, she claimed there was a meeting in Texas with the owner of Dallas Cowboys. Pepsi Cola was there, etc. Lee Harvey Oswald was, Deborah Hoover was there, Nixon was there, etc. And if you think about what Kennedy's loss means, Johnson left the meeting saying the SOB will never bother me again, so he becomes the president. George H.W. Bush had 2 boats, the Barbara and the Zapata, that were part of the Bay of Pigs invasion. He became president like Johnson. Ford changed the bullet entrance. He admitted to that on the documents, and he became president. It's very interesting how these things happen. And Nixon, there's the Chicago document saying that he at one point in time was an associate of Jack Rubenstein, Jack Ruby. He became president. So a lot of people involved around the periphery of the assassination, 4 of them became U.S. presidents. The first not to be involved in anything was Jimmy Carter. So fascinating things.
That's really interesting. Wait, so you talked to his girlfriend or his whoever?
I've communicated with Lee Harvey Oswald's girlfriend. I communicated with Bill Celeste, Dylan Johnson's friend, who talked about Malcolm Malls to me, who was a key figure, had to leave it in France with the cotton scandal. I talked to James Page, who was at Daily Plaza that day at the assassination. I've corresponded with them, yes. Sadly, people pass on. I was a younger person back then, and I wish I had pushed things further, but I was honestly scared. When I began to finding out things I found out, I'm thinking, people are still scared about this. Be careful. They keep on delaying the release of the information and stuff. And I was warned by the guy at Chemical Bank, just listen, I'll tell you things, but you cannot share it. And if you do, that's on you.
Yeah, and why won't they release
instead,
it?
it was the most successful coup d'etat that they had done. They did the Iranian dictatorship. They took him out, Mossadegh Dagan, right? And Iran and put the Shah in. They did one in Central America. They were doing these. The one thing they messed up that people found out about was what they released the bio on Oswald before he was charged and sentenced out in the someplace in Australia or someplace in New Zealand, someplace like that. It's a oopsie one, so they had to cover that up. But they had the government in the air and things like that. So it was just a really fascinating thing. And one of the folks mentioned about RFK. Yeah, there are records of him. You can go on YouTube where he's telling Johnson, "Look, one of our guys killed the president. You have a back channel. What's your back channel?" And RFK and Jackie Onassis both believe that Johnson was responsible for their brother and husband's death.
I haven't heard that one either.
He had the limousine. That's a crime scene. Shipped right out of Pontiac, Michigan, and shipped right apart. And two workers there who took it apart said there were entrance wounds in the front, of the vehicle in the window going in. So fascinating stuff, and I hope someday we find out, because the big picture is this. The American people vote. It's democracy in theory, correct? And if we suppose that's important, to us, that's important to do. If anybody could take the president out because they don't like him, it's not a democracy. So it seems as though people in the government said this is a bad choice. It should have been Nixon. The mafia stole anyway, so let's take him out. And the people I spoke to felt they were super patriots. They all felt they're doing the right thing by taking him out. They really did. They felt it was the right thing. And George H.W. Bush said, if they ever find out what we did, they'll hang us from street posts. That's what they, it's fascinating, like back channel that was going on. But I think I talked a lot. I want to take up the time.
No. I mean, it is interesting. I mean, like I'm learning new things today, about stuff I didn't know about. So I'm actually, I still think it had to be a whole bunch of everybody. You know what I mean? Like just kind of whoever was involved was involved, and they've managed to somehow keep it quiet. But then back then, the social media wasn't around. The news wasn't what it was.
Yeah, that's true.
There wasn't all this. So who knows what we would have?
Well, the papers would work with the politicians. Yeah.
Is it true that China's paper was like how it said that he was assassinated before it even happened?
I don't recall the country that the Chemical Bank chief of security said to me, but he said that it was released in a foreign country too soon. I thought maybe it was New Zealand or Australia, someplace like that. But I try to go back and look at my notes from like 25 years ago. But remember, that was the one oopsie they did, but no one really cared. They were too involved with what happened in the cover up, and then Oswald gets shot, and then poor Jack Ruby cares about Jackie Kennedy, and then little John saluting the casket, and then people mourning the first Catholic president, and he was so young, and people were so emotional they didn't necessarily look at some of the facts at the time. It made it easier. And plus, they hid the records away for years. So I mean,
well, they still have stuff.
People are more interested right now over like what the Kardashians are doing. What's happening on TikTok than what's what's happening in the big picture of government even to this day. So it's a rather sad statement.
Right, absolutely. Aaron.
Hi. So I did hear a very far out theory that I had not heard before. I've obviously learned a whole bunch of new things too. But I'd seen somebody on a podcast, I don't know, 6 or 8 months ago, and he's super deep into conspiracy theories of all kinds. You've probably talked to James Taryn at this point. But what he had said, and I had never heard this before, was the theory that did the government basically turn Lee Harvey Oswald into a robot by like implanting something apparently. And I didn't research this. I've looked nothing up. This is just purely what I heard. Was when they had done an autopsy, apparently supposedly there was some sort of incision behind his ear. I mean, that's like way down the what if barrel of theories, but that was one that kind of
there was a wound with blood, touched the blood in his scalp when they did the autopsy. It's true. And even years later, his brother had him dug up to make sure it was him in the casket, and it was actually him, and the body had then become almost soapy and things. We could still see a
Right.
little bit of indent of what happened. Some people believe that he survived the stomach wound, but was actually shot on the way to the hospital, and that was the end because Johnson wanted a confession from him. But I don't know about that. But yes, that's something that some of my sources could confirm.
Yeah, I had just never, I think that's the thing too. It's so fascinating about this is there's so many different possibilities. There's so many different players involved, whether it's, high level government. Like, I mean, are we potentially talking about high level government, similar to who's keeping disclosure under wraps or who's really in power at the end of the day, right? And it's not any of the people in our elected positions, if that were the case. So
Right.
I don't know. It's, there's so many different possibilities. And I think that's what makes this particular case so fascinating, because even from like a forensic standpoint, I mean, I was a paralegal for 9 years and, looking at, bullet trajectories and entrance, where it came out of the depository and all of that, it doesn't really all line up. So I don't know. I think there's a lot of different options, but I do find this fascinating because I'm in the same boat as you. Like, I'm learning so much information here, just of other options, different players and things like that. So I find this fascinating.
Right. Yeah, no, I've never heard that one either. About Oswald. I do think that they used him. I never heard the
Like metaphorically, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, he was saying basically like they turned him almost into a zombie or something. Not a zombie, but just basically he was no longer
like brainwashed.
like somebody chipped him or something, and so he was under,
His girlfriend disagreed with that. His girlfriend said that he warned her that he's not going to make it back from Dallas and things. She's active on Facebook. She holds an annual conference each year with guest speakers. Judith Barry Baker. Look her up. She's an amazing person. She just came back from Switzerland. She finally feels safe to come back now. She's back in the States. Just fascinating. She's a scientist. She helped work on the cancer plot for Castro, trying to develop the cancer vaccine with the mice and things like that. And she knew all the players that you mentioned before down in New Orleans, and so she grew up as an Air Force brat on Eglin Air Force Base in Western Florida.
So crazy. Like, I mean, like, she's got to have, like, I mean, like, just her life. I mean, does she have like a tough?
Well, yeah, obviously, she was married, so she had to have an affair, but she didn't have a relationship that was involved with much love, and so she and he met, and she has the pay stubs from both of them. They have Oswald and her working at the place, and she said, "Listen, there's no way you come back from Russia during the height of the Cold War, the Red Scare, and they say come on in. It's not going to happen." And then they get a job through DeMorenshine, who's a friend of the Bushes and a friend of the CIA. All these things, she has all the deposit stubs, everything that he was, the contracts and things that he was actually working for the government.
Yeah, but I mean, even after.
And then the play for Cuba thing was just a ruse to try to make it seem like he's working for their side to infiltrate, So it was, it's fascinating stuff. It makes me a little sad sometimes because I wish we knew the truth. I think it's important to. But again, these people believe it was the best thing for the country. Though it's softened communism. Look, they had missiles in Cuba. That couldn't happen. The idea about the oil allowance being depleted for the oil moguls, they didn't like that. The CIA, my God, they were actually our secret government. They were the de facto government of the CIA. Even Eisenhower talked about that concept, correct? And and then when you try to fire Dulles, well, listen, his brother's the mayor of Dallas. Changes the parade route. That's a weird thing, huh? I mean, there are a lot of things that people don't
change the parade
talk
route,
about, right? But that are
the
part of that
motorcade
thing.
down.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were supposed to go down to Stemmons, and they took that right, and then that left onto Allen.
Against the all standard procedure.
Oswald couldn't have done that. Another thing is the motorcades, they're supposed to have a certain speed. I believe it was 12 miles per hour, and they came to they were driving at a crawl, and then once the shots rang out, they were actually going so slow they were almost stopped.
Yeah.
So the only ones who can do that are the CIA. That's not the
and the most damning evidence to me is the fact that Lyndon Baines Johnson, as vice president, cars back. He had fought to get Connolly out of the car. He said, "No, he's with me. I'm with their safety point. As his best friend." And so they apparently, according to the Secret Service and witnesses, LBJ had a walkie-talkie and ducked down. It was the first time even fired. So he knew something was going on. He said, "Listen, I'll be your guy. Just get me in there." It's kind of sad.
Yeah, I mean, and the stuff he did immediately following.
Right.
But I mean, even her, like I'm saying, like after, her boyfriend, was Lee Harvey Oswald. I mean, I'm glad to see she's so successful. because it's not her that did it.
She
Wasn't
honestly
her.
hid away for like 30 some odd years, and now she feels safe to coming back now because of the internet and people protect her and people come around her now and try to protect her from whatever would be out there that she's afraid of, And then there's always that risk of paranoia too, right? I mean, because you can be wary of anything and never leave your home. And so
Right.
sometimes it's hard to judge between a real threat, a real shadow threat, and a non-existing threat because they appear the same at first. It's probably not going to happen, but
I've wondered too about, the supposed, for lack of a better phrase, the like Russian babushka that was there that day that no one found. Don't know much about that particular story either, but you have some of these players who disappeared. Can't
David
assign
Ferry
anything.
also claimed that there was a shot. He said from the sewer grate, below the grassy knoll, a high caliber rifle, boom, right in. So, but again, most of the people that I've spoken to agree that there's Daltex had a shooter, that the book deposit had a shooter, but that the primary shooters were grassy knoll on the grate between the grassy knoll to the front. Most people that I've spoken to that either we were there or know people who were there say, but a triangulation of crossfire. That's what they talk about in the movie, that they got everything going on. And most people believe the shooters actually imported from Europe. A lot of sharpshooters from Europe, mercenaries that hired by the mafia on behalf of the CIA. Again, I can't prove that. Just what some of the folks that I talked to say.
So just to follow up on that, one of the tactics for the military, and which would include the CIA, is triangulation of fire, as was just mentioned. There, and just also to add on what you just said about the foreign shooters. There was an assassin from France that the mafia used to use, and with my abilities, standing there when I was 18 years old, and then again when I was stationed in Texas, I kept hearing a French voice, and it was as I was looking from basically towards the grassy knoll behind me. I kept hearing the voice coming from behind, so it was basically not the school book depository, but the building right next to it is where I was getting the repercussion from the concussion from the shot, along with the grassy knoll. And then I believe you also said this, there was a grate that was just down underneath the bridge, and for that position, I read in different stories or different books that person was Johnny Roselli, who was a Chicago mobster. He was also Las Vegas's outside man before Tony Spilotro. Sorry, my family just got here. So
some big names.
Yes. But I definitely buy that about the foreign shooter, because I kept hearing French and it was coming from behind me. Another thing with Oswald, when all this chaos was happening, people who were running downstairs and out of the building, there was a lot of witnesses were saying that Oswald was in the second story cafeteria of the school book depository and he was eating. So all this chaos and he's eating, and that was it.
There was no gun residue. There's nothing on his hands for the gun. That's an odd thing.
Well, and then, but I'm thinking like all these people that supposedly witnessed something that they did not want to get out, right? They died, mysteriously died, right?
Yes.
Why not? How did they not get a hold of Zapruder?
Well, I read, again, this is not primary source for me, that Time Life got it and then altered it a bit. They took some frames and things out. So I don't know, the one we have is not the actual, what we see. And apparently the original version had more of a jerky motion where the actual car actually almost came to a quick stop. You know what I'm saying? And then that was, of course, against any protocols, and bang. So that they tried to, I read Time Life adjusted a little bit. And again, the media was trying to make us proud of our establishments, of our institutions, of our president, because we're trying to fight this Cold War. We're a new country compared to the other nations, So Kennedy would meet the reporters at the time and say, what I talk about today. They coached Kennedy with his answers. The paper reporters wanted to get the stories. They work with the government behind the scenes. So it's unlike today where it's antagonistic, where the press really goes after politicians. Back in those days, trying to build them up, mystique. Like, for example, FDR in the wheelchair. We would know that in 5 minutes in today's society with cameras and things like that, cell phones. That was hidden away for after he died. No one knew. So again, all these things were covered up. But people in the government knew about what was going on behind the scenes, and it made them nervous.
Yeah, and they still have files they haven't released.
That's hard to understand.
And
Trump
that
was
was
an outsider, right? Trump was an outsider. I think he would do it, but he didn't do it.
I know he was going to do it, and then Biden pushed it up, didn't he?
He brought it up, and it was squashed down again. He said, "I can't do it."
Yeah. Somebody's asking, any thoughts about the badge man on the knoll? I don't know about that.
Yeah, the badge man was he's said to be what he was the one who people who were back there on the grassy knoll. That was there was a parking lot behind it. He was clearing everybody out, and then this was also mentioned earlier. The people who were on the grassy knoll, they swore that the shot came from behind them, which would have been badge man. And there's photos of him, basically his silhouette, and you can definitely see the badge. So it would have been somebody in uniform clearing the people out, because it was just somebody in general. People they're not going to move for just anybody.
Right.
Nobody will move for.
And the key point about that is Dallas police said no one's there. There's no Dallas police officer in that spot, period. Right. So it was somebody wearing a uniform just trying to clear the area out. So that's witnesses, which is also fascinating.
Another witness said that they saw the man take off his uniform and hand it to somebody from the train. Because the bridge over Elm that's a train track. Mm-hmm. And they were saying that the bag of clothes was handed to somebody from the train in a train worker's uniform.
And it sucks because those cell phones didn't exist back then, so
right.
There's no, it's not like, there wasn't webcams everywhere. There weren't street cams. Officers weren't wearing body cams. So there was really, all you had was that Zapruder film, really.
If I can jump in with that, Jesse Helms, who was a very conservative senator from South Carolina, he told Bill Clinton, because Bill Clinton was a big fan of Kennedy, he said, we don't do that anymore. We don't assassinate people. We assassinate their character now. It's different nowadays. With all the media nowadays, you don't actually kill, you assassinate character instead, because just get rid of them that way, because people think there's too much of a trail, and it's kind of fascinating that that was a statement made to him.
Yeah. Brian, you were smirking. Do you agree? It sounds like we all agree, it's a little bit of everybody, but do you guys think there's more involvement from one than the other?
I believe it was the CIA mafia conglomeration, because the connection was already in place during the Bay of Pigs, and the government and the mafia have a long history going back even to World War II, the invasion of Sicily. The government approached Meyer Lansky, who was basically the mafia's financial genius after Arnold Rothstein was killed, and they went to a man named Sox Land.
Oh, he froze. Darn.
He comes back in though, he's gonna come back.
Good stuff. Good stuff.
Yeah, he said the CIA and the mafia, right?
Did you lose me again?
Yes,
I did. You said the CIA and the mafia.
Yeah. Well.
Or did you say the government?
Yeah. Well, there was the connection between the mafia and the government were already in place since World War II.
Government. Okay.
Meyer Lansky was approached, and Frank Costello, and they said, "You got to see a man sorry, I might be getting a couple of things mixed." They approached the man that Meyer Lansky sent them to, which actually this isn't making sense right now. There's a man by the name of Sox Lanza, who's the one who actually referred them to Lucky Luciano, who was serving a sentence up at Dannemora up in northern New York. So they said only Lucky Luciano can help you with the invasion of Sicily, and so on the condition that he was released, that they said that he would help, and he did. And so the invasion of Sicily was it took place with the assistance of Sicilians that the mafia put him in contact with. So
interesting.
They were already in place. And then the Bay of Pigs, that was a CIA mafia conglomeration.
But doesn't this, correct me if I'm wrong, because I don't know, really, who answers to who in the branches of the government. It confuses me, but wouldn't the CIA? I mean, the CIA. I could be wrong, but it doesn't seem bigger to be able to do all that stuff. Like I feel like it would have to be like LBJ, and you know what I mean. Like I feel like the top players would have to be involved somehow.
Well, to declare war, Congress does that. Historically, Woodrow Wilson, FDR go before Congress and say, "We need to declare war. Please do this." And they said, "Aye, aye, we'll do this." The CIA, the ONI, things like that were ways around Congress, so it wasn't public what we're doing, so we could respond in kind, in the shadows to what the other governments were doing, especially the communists and things like that. So they were, in a sense, a rogue operation, which is why JFK said, "I'm shutting them down," because they're not responsible to the people. The people at the ONI and CIA would say, "Listen, people can't understand this. They can't know about this. Loose lips sink ships. We have to do these things to keep our society, our democracy safe." And so that's the big struggle we had. That's why JFK got in trouble with that, in a sense, RFK, because they went against the power players. They went against everything, and that's not always a safe option to do. And then, but again, it kind of brings you to this Sophie's Choice kind of thing, where you're thinking, my gosh, so what do we do now? Just not vote to make a difference, or just vote knowing it might make a difference? Many presidents go into office and they're to change things, and they just don't. Obama's going to close Guantanamo Bay, remember? Oops.
Mm-hmm.
Things don't always happen that way because they get in there and say, "Well, I'm sorry, I can't do that," and what they know. And I'm sure that once fewer people pass away who were involved back in those days, at least the records, but they probably didn't do that yet because there's some people still who are around. They don't want to put through that ordeal when they're like 85, 90 years of age. But I think eventually the truth will out. A gentleman wrote James Earl Carter as president, saying he's being harassed about the JFK assassination because he had knowledge of some of the things. They said, "Who was it?" And they said it was George Bush Jr. So when George Bush Jr. was in his missing time period, they couldn't find his records from them. He was actually working on behalf of the CIA, trying to get some of these records taken away. So again, it's a fascinating operation. John Hinckley, who just was released the other day, right, from the assassination attempt on Ronald Reagan. It was reported in the New York Times on March 31st, 1981, that at the time of the shooting, that Hinckley's brother was having lunch with Neil Bush, the son of Neil Bush. How odd is it that the person who shoots the president, right, the vice president's son is having breakfast with him, his family, and it's again an odd thing, So it's just some history is just fascinating to learn. But the bottom line is you have to eat your dinner, you have to listen to music, you have to love your family because it can make you insane after a while if you're not careful. You can make sure you keep down on the ground and enjoy your life, otherwise you get caught up in the mystery of it all.
Taryn, you're muted still, honey.
Ha ha ha.
So going back to Oswald, there was some of the stuff that I've read because he spent time in the Soviet Union. There's reports that he was also working for the CIA during that time when he was in the Soviet Union.
Yeah.
One of the other things that was brought out is there was a man posing as Oswald in Mexico City at the embassy, at one of the embassies down there, and he was making it clear to everybody around that he was Lee Harvey Oswald.
That was Ralph Gebb, Gebb. Ralph Gebb, his name was,
and that he was going to assassinate the president. When you look at photos of him, he looks nothing like Oswald. So Oswald, he was definitely set up.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yes,
Yeah, I've seen that
exactly.
picture.
I was just looking at that prior. So yeah, he was. So they planted that about Oswald being down in Mexico, and it was obviously somebody else.
Right. It didn't look anything like him. Mark, who do you think? Who do you think had the play in this? Do you think it was? I mean, do you agree with?
Oh yeah, I agree with all you guys. It could be anybody. I mean, there's so many key players here that did not care for Kennedy, and it's like, okay, who do you blame? Who was the one that actually told Oswald, or had someone else, or who else? I mean, it could be anybody. Are we ever going to know who the truth is? Probably not, unless we're in the government or go to National Archives and steal stuff. But will we ever know? Probably not. I'd love to know who actually
Hey,
killed
Nicolas
Kennedy.
Cage did it.
But
Aaron. Oh, sorry. What were you saying, Mark?
my only thing is that with the rifle that Oswald used, that was a piece of junk or type of Italian rifle. I mean, if he was a expert marksman like he says he was in the Marines, why did he use that thing? Why could he used a 1903 Springfield or a better high-powered rifle, but he used that one. So that's another thing that I was like kind of questioning, like, why do you use that rifle instead of anything that's better out there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not only that, that rifle was a mail order rifle, and it was not an accurate weapon as was just said. But the media played it up that Oswald was a marksman, but others who were around Oswald said he was average on best.
Right.
That he was not a very good shot.
Yeah. Aaron,
Yes.
what do you think?
I mean, I think you guys are all right. I mean, I think there's so many different options, and it's obviously not just, I mean, it seems obvious that you can't just be one group, like you said. I mean, it's too big of a thing to have to pull off.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, technology is different now. You can't really get away with shit like that now. Sorry. But
Come on.
you had to have a lot of players and a lot of different levels of government, and not all people in the government. I mean, I hadn't really heard the mafia connection before, but that makes complete sense. And the other question it begs with the mafia is, and you probably know the answer to this, Brian, already, how high up in government is the mafia instilled? You know what I mean? Like, how far up the chain of command does that really go? You know, and so how much easier is it for them to get shit like that done?
We can't say.
You're right. You could tell me, but then you'd have to kill me, right? But you
Not
know,
me. I wouldn't do it. No.
Yeah. But it's like, I mean, if you've got, I mean, even just having recently watched The Author on HBO, the story of the making of The Godfather, you really get on a small scale the amount of sway they had. And then, you know, their involvement a little bit with the government, but how high up does that go? So even if you've got the mafia involved, you still need, is it an inside job from the people around them involved in the mix? You know, was it the dude in the car behind? I mean, there's just, I think it's obvious you can't have just one group assigned to this, right? I think there's just way too many players. I mean, how do you pull something like that off?
Right.
And it's still a mystery this many years later.
Yeah. I mean, but there's reasons that they aren't letting files out. There's reasons that they're not. You know what I mean? So, and I think they know that one, you know, people can't handle it. Wouldn't be able to handle whatever. Even though I think we know they still think we're idiots. You know, like you look back and think, how could that not? You know, like duh, we're not dumb. You know, but I'm not saying it was aliens.
Aliens.
But it was aliens.
Well, I was just about to say, funny you mentioned that. I mean, I don't know. I just have this feeling like, you know, we're sitting on things like, because obviously people have the answer to this. They obviously have the information on disclosure for aliens. I mean, given who I work for, I deal with the whole alien conversation a lot. But I feel like if this kind of stuff gets out, it gives the American public exactly the idea of how little control the government actually has.
That's a scary thing.
That's true.
And that is a scary thing, especially for the public, but scarier for the government.
Yeah.
Because if the truth is out and who's really pulling the puppet strings, I don't know.
That's true.
Karen, I have to go. I'm sorry, ladies. I have to go. I have my
you...
show starting a little while at 9. I prep for that. But it's a pleasure to meet all of you, Aaron
Thank
and
you,
Brian
Chris.
and Mark. My pleasure.
Nice
Chris,
to meet
you're
you.
going to come on.
Nice meeting you, Chris.
You too, Brian.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, Karen, for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for coming on. Love you.
Well. Love you too. Bye-bye.
Yeah.
Oh God, now my face is bigger. I'm just kidding.
Sorry. Hold on, like
I'm teasing.
Oh my God. Now mine's
Your
bigger.
face is bigger.
Eek.
Sorry, I lost you
I
all
don't know how to
for
fix
a
it.
couple seconds.
Oh, sorry. Hold on.
I was totally kidding. Anyway. It is such a fascinating topic, though, because you get so many different. I mean, I've learned so much just in this last 59 minutes. You know, some things I knew, some things I didn't, but none of it seems necessarily out of the realm of possibility, with the exception of turning him into a robot. Basically,
Right.
Seems a little off the deep end for me. But I feel like everything else. Why isn't any of it or all of it possible?
It's almost like it was like the perfect storm, and everything just came together. But how? does it stay this quiet? Like nobody has said a word. I mean, people talk. Obviously, you guys, everybody has this information, right? Brian, you have information. Chris has information. Oliver Stone put this movie out that was like awesome, and made it look so easy and possible. You know what I mean, to pull off with all these people involved.
Mhm.
And I agree. I mean, it's just, but I just wish they would. I wish somebody would be like, here you go, here it is. You guys deserve, this is yours. You deserve to know what happened, you know?
Well, where interest lies, honor dies. And I think that's kind of so much of the problem with so much of this stuff is it's so much of what's happened is self-serving interest. It's not what's best for the public. It's not what's best for the people necessarily, but it's what's best for them to cover their own asses on some level. Not all of them, but I think in a lot of cases where interest lies, honor dies. So it's hard to.
Like I'm a strong believer in this. Like I separate our military from the government.
Same.
I trust our military. Now I know not everybody. There's bad eggs in every profession, right? But I don't know where the hell I was going with that. Where was I going? Oh, what was I saying? If the military doesn't want me to know something, I don't want to know it. Because I feel like they're protecting me from not letting me know something. So I'm fine. I'm good. And if the military is the one that's like, if they have like special military people that watch, they're into my computer because they want to make sure I'm not a terrorist. I don't care who shoots for my shit because I'm not doing nothing wrong. They may see some stuff that might scar them for life, but I believe that if there's things that I don't know, it's for a reason, and that's come from the military. Now the government, on the other hand, you always want transparency, right?
Which we've never had,
no.
Ever. Sadly.
Yeah, but I mean, I think it was interesting. I don't know who said it, but somebody said it about Aaron, you might have said it. Like if letting that information out and showing like who really is like they're not running the show. No. Which I mean, I don't know about right now, but we're supposed to be the strongest country in the world. You know what I mean? So
yeah.
How they could continue to pull all of it off is just and keep it quiet. I don't know how nobody said a word to anybody. Like nobody tattled, nobody talked about it, nobody said shit. Because it would have gotten out by now.
Yeah.
But that's the other thing too. Like stuff has gotten out.
Who's to say it's not already out there? Who's to say somebody hasn't already said it? But there's so much bullshit in between that people are trying to figure out that when that person's gone, there might be a big letter in their will that's like, hey, I told you guys this shit 30 or 40, 50, however many years ago. But how do we determine who's on the right track when any of it's possible?
Right. So true. You guys. But if you trust, because she said you could trust the military, but not military itself. You have to trust the military. Yeah, I love our military. So like that's why I say like when people I had a discussion with somebody about 9/11, people think, oh, the government planned that. And I said, there's no way.
My father's one of those. Full believer it was an inside gig.
Not
conversation I can't even like entertain at all.
No, I can't.
So far down.
I'm not going, so I don't believe that at all. I believe who did it was responsible, and that's that. But yeah, but see, this is what I'm talking about. The people they think will snitch, they off. But that's what I mean. Like the Zapruder, like I don't know how they didn't he was standing there filming. They had to have seen him. They had to have known he was there. They had to have known they were watching everything. Why didn't they bum rush him right away? and said, "Give me your camera."
Yeah.
I mean, even if you weren't involved in it and you were investigating, you're clearly like, I mean, I'm sure you're trained to protect the president no matter wherever you're at, whether you're a police officer standing there on the side of the road, or you're the CIA in the car with the president, or you're a military guy, an army guy somewhere, somewhere else watching. Everybody's trained that when the presidents are out, that's a whole other ball game. When I saw it firsthand when I went to Pence and Trump, went to one of the rallies. Like Pence, it was still kind of it was still kind of strict, but it was a little bit less because Pence was first, and I thought that was strict. But then when I went to see Trump, and I was getting taken in by police and like secret, like whoever they were, like they wouldn't let me through. I mean, it was very, very, very. They watch everything. They had snipers on top of roofs. They had, I mean, these are just things that they do when the president is coming.
Yeah.
Now, maybe granted, maybe some procedures might have changed since then, or maybe some things weren't in place, and now they are. But I mean, I think even in '63, they were just protecting the president that way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
No.
Yeah, I think so. I was looking at. I think Brian lost his sound.
Oh, you can't hear us?
He said. I think he can hear us, but he can't.
He's muted. You're muted. Unmute.
Hey, Taryn, my apologies. I got to get off. I got to get.
Yeah, no, I know.
Before I go to work.
Brian, you're muted. You
It
guys
was nice to meet you, Mark.
Yes.
Yeah, nice meeting you guys, Taryn. I'll talk to you sometime tonight.
All right, hon. Thanks for coming on.
No problem. Nice meeting you all.
You too.
Yeah. Have a good night, guys.
You too.
Yeah.
So then there were 2 chickens.
I guess it's just us, unless Brian comes back on.
He might. He was saying his sound was squirrely. But all this stuff's fascinating.
Yeah, it really is. And then when you watch the movies and stuff, and then hearing all the stuff that I learned, like I've learned new stuff today. I had no idea anything like what Brian was saying. I knew nothing about what Chris said. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like some of the stuff that Chris said, and some of the connections that Chris has, I had no idea. And Brian's sounds very, very. I would love to talk to him more about like the mafia stuff, because he sounds like he really, really knows a lot about that.
And that's a whole fascinating subject in and of itself. I mean, just the things that the Teamsters were able to get into over the years at the government level. They had a hand in everything.
Yeah. And, I always said, I'm always like, the mafia isn't that big.
Yeah.
But they are. Like, I always said, I'm like, there's no way the mafia alone couldn't pull it off. Like, you know what I mean? Like, that's what I always meant to say, is like, it just couldn't have just been the mafia. Like, there had to have been other.
You had to coordinate that. You had to coordinate. There's no way around that. I mean, I've even got a friend who's older who's, knew them from business up in the Northeast. And even to this day, in his age now, he's like, I got a guy.
Yeah.
I'm like, how long have you had a guy? He's like, 60 years. I'm like, and they're still active.
Well, and that's the thing. Stop and think about this, right? So there's everybody that was on the panel tonight believes that there's all these people involved, right? To be able to pull this off.
Yeah.
Yet they want people to believe Lee Harvey Oswald pulled this off. This Joe Schmo that just hung out like on the streets, handing flyers out and working hard every day. That they want us to believe that just this one person pulled this off. Yet we don't think just the mafia could pull it off, and we don't think just the CIA could pull it off. Like, it has to be all these people involved. So why would we think just one person could pull it off?
Because the government told us to believe that for the longest time. I think that's half the problem, but then again, the more you kind of involve different groups, different people, different things, it makes it a hell of, obviously, because we're still having this conversation all these years later, right?
Right.
Makes it a hell of a lot harder to ascertain who actually did it. So you put the scapegoat and you put the onus on one dude, and that satisfies people for a hot minute. And then they're like, this doesn't seem right to me.
Yeah.
And, so then you start asking questions, but the closer people feel like they get to it, then there's this arm of it and that arm of it and this group and that, and they did the, so it's like it's almost like it was a coordinated attack to make it impossible to figure out who did it.
Right.
Who was actually the mastermind behind the whole thing.
Right.
Because at the end of the day, does it really matter who pulls the trigger?
Right.
I'd rather know who, I'd rather know who coordinated it, like who set it up, who's behind the whole thing, right? Mm-hmm. If you figure that out, then you filter it down.
But we're all not, the world isn't dumb. Everybody knows. But even with that, it's just, if you want to be legal, there was never, people can't say Lee Harvey Oswald. They had Lee Harvey Oswald, but he was never proven guilty.
No.
So Brian, I don't know if you heard me. I said, but like when you think about it, like we all collectively said there had to be all these key players, involved. Yes. So what makes anybody think that just this one single Joe Schmo man would be able to pull that off?
Yeah.
When we don't
I missed the last couple of minutes. I was trying to get my signal back.
Yeah. So I know, I figured. Yeah. I was just saying, like, they want you to believe that, just like some people say, like, yeah, there's people out there that believe Lee Harvey Oswald did it. Mm-hmm. And I say, okay, well, if you don't think, because I've always said the mafia alone couldn't have done that. I don't think. I think
there had to be a cooperation with the CIA. CIA controlled too many aspects of it. The conglomeration was already there. Another one, LBJ, he had a lot to gain. Between he and the Kennedys, they hated each other extremely. Kennedy wanted to stop the Vietnam War. LBJ wanted to continue it. One of the main factors is there were military weapons producers. There was Bell Helicopter, which was another big one. They were going bankrupt, and they were also stationed, or these companies were based out of Texas. In Bell Helicopter specifically was in Dallas Fort Worth area. And when after Kennedy's assassination, the war escalated, and Bell Helicopter, specifically the Huey, became the workhorse of the Vietnam War. So these companies that were on the verge of bankruptcy all of a sudden had follow the money. So they benefited tremendously with LBJ in office over Kennedy.
Yeah. But that's what I'm saying. Like, there's that's why I can't believe just one person did it, because I don't believe that just the mafia could do that. And when you say mafia, it's a group of men, or whoever's involved. Like, I don't want to say just men, women too, whatever. But if we don't think that they're pretty powerful. The mafia is pretty powerful, and if they can't pull something off like that alone, what makes you think this
one dude off the street
could do it? Yeah. There's no way.
And that is then the cleanup as well. Who had access to what? One of the things that disappeared was Kennedy's brain, which showed multiple gunshots from different angles, and that brain disappeared. Who had access to it? CIA,
right?
FBI. Another thing, J. Edgar Hoover for the FBI. Several presidents hated him. They hated his guts, and the reason is,
right when he gets to
right. But I know it's almost like a good TV show where it's like this thing happens, and it's like commercial. They all send you the Geico.
There he is.
I don't know if you guys. I think I said a lot without you guys hearing me.
Mm-hmm. I said this is like a TV show where like you get to the climax and you're ready to hear like this awesome stuff, and then the Geico commercial comes on. You're like, no.
Well, anyway, what I was saying is Kennedy. He wanted to fire J. Edgar Hoover. Hoover had documentation on all of these politicians, including the Kennedys, on a whole bunch of movie stars. So he had dossiers on so many people that he basically extorted or blackmailed people to stay in power. And JFK, he didn't care. He wanted to fire him anyway. So when after the assassination, it's usually the House Committee on Assassinations that does the investigation. The FBI did the investigation on this, under Hoover's orders. So they could hide a lot of stuff. They could cover up a lot of stuff. They could destroy evidence. And how many years later, 60 years later, it's it proved to be true about all of this evidence disappearing. Another thing is the mafia, when there's a high profile murder, even within the organization, they usually take out the killer. So because I'm not saying Oswald, I don't see him as the killer, but Jack Ruby took him out immediately. And then Jack Ruby, while he was in prison, he kept saying he wanted immunity and that he had a lot to say, and nobody would listen to him. They kept him locked away until he died of cancer.
Yep.
So they did not let him talk to anybody.
Yeah, I know. And that is another thing I said. I said, they obviously, Jack Ruby knew he was going to go to jail for it. So I'm like, maybe they had this where like, look, we know everything that you've done. So you need to take one for the team, and go to jail go down for being a hero, quote unquote, for taking the guy out that killed the president of the United States. Like they probably told him like, oh yeah, this is going to look, people think you're a hero. Instead of going to jail, a scumbag killing all these people, we won't let that information out. Take one for the team, and this is what's going to happen. And that's what he did. And I guarantee you, had Oswald gotten a chance to say anything other than I'm a patsy, and I haven't, for the longest time he kept saying I haven't been told what I did, and so I think if he would have been able to get up there and say what he had to say, I'm sure there was involvement and he knew things, which is why he died. But I don't think he did it.
It's almost like we'll give you a sandwich. Like this, I'm not saying that Oswald was an idiot by any stretch. I don't know enough about the man to make that but it's like, for example, you're having money problems. We'll make your money problems disappear. We just need you to do this one thing. And it's like, the left hand doesn't always know what the right hand's doing because they want that separation. He may not have even known what he was actually getting into that day.
Yeah, that's true.
Fire a shot out this window somewhere, aim in this general direction, and then run or whatever. Like, I feel like whatever he knew, like you said, like that much of what needed to be known for him. It wasn't even giving a choice.
And Jack Ruby, he was also well known to the police department. He used to deliver the payoff envelopes to the cops there in Dallas. So he was constantly inside the police station. So he had access, and nobody ever questioned him about his access. And that, which also kind of, where did this police uniform come from for the badge man on the grassy knoll? I mean, you can kind of make a little inference right there.
Yeah, I didn't even think about that.
Uniform came from Jack Ruby from the police department.
Yeah. Well, and he walked right in there with a handgun. Too. I mean, somebody had to just let it. They're not just going to let some Jack Ruby walk into the police station. Like, if you see Jack Ruby walking into your police station, you're going to be like, wait, what's going on here? We're supposed to arrest you. Like, what are you doing here? And that's just for, news and papers. And then, I mean, not everybody in the police, I would have to say, was like crooked. You know what I mean? I'm sure maybe they were. I don't know. I didn't live back then, so I don't know. I do know that the mafia was more prevalent and more out there and seemed to be more in control because they were more in the limelight and more into, in the papers and on the news and stuff like that, but than they are now. But
what would it have looked like if we had the technology then? It wouldn't have happened probably, but
I don't know.
Shits and giggles. If we had the same technology back then that we have now, I mean, what would this look like?
I know, it's crazy, and it definitely, if it was going to happen again, it would have happened already. Because I mean, there has been presidents that have pissed a lot of people. You know what I mean? Like, it's just because that was my point to Mark, was like, you have to do more than just. It has to be more than just, oh, he pissed me off. Like. It's not, I don't like him, because Look at the last 16, 20 years, you know. So that's my stance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Well, what?
as I say, you also look at the Warren Commission. They had people on there who openly hated Kennedy.
Yeah.
Specifically Alan Dulles, who was the head of the CIA, who Kennedy fired, and he goes into the Warren Commission, and he's literally handing out information on lone gunmen. That's usually the case for assassinations is a lone gunman, which is true, but he was already slanting the Warren Commission on this.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And so Rich says, but look at the attempt on Reagan. But the keyword there is attempt. Like, it wasn't pulled off. This was a successful assassination of the president of the United States. Like, successful. And to this day, that, like, again, if nobody was involved, that why wouldn't they just release all of the files to prove? Like, look, it was Lee Harvey Oswald. Why aren't you guys believing us? Like, this is here's the evidence. Nobody ever presented any evidence anywhere.
But it's an inside job, so that's going to disappear, I would think, right?
Yeah.
If you assume that it's an
Well,
inside
there's all those files and everything, and who knows if all those files are really all there.
No, I bet not. I bet they have quite a few.
Even when they do release it, they're going to say, here it is. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And well, who knows if those documents would even be the truthful, factual documents? I mean, they'd all be redacted to hell and back. I mean, I've worked in federal law. Like, I mean, you get a deposition transcript and you can read like 7 words. You know what I mean? So even if you get it, what the hell is it actually going to tell you? Nothing. Because they're still going to redact the shit out of it. So they give you just enough to be like, here, we're giving you this, but you're not going to really learn anything today.
Yeah. We're going to give you stuff you already know.
Yeah. Yep. Crazy
but
shit.
like, again, and there wasn't this follow-up, like the attempt on Reagan. It was an attempt. It wasn't successful. You saw who did it. They got who did it. You know what I mean? So you knew that this was like totally like, and I'm going to bring up JFK, the movie by Oliver Stone, because I think he did a fantastic job on it. And I really do but he brings up the points like, Lee Harvey Oswald goes to a movie theater, 25 police officers show up. Like, the president was just shot. Why are they all worried about some guy that didn't pay money to get into a movie theater?
Right.
25 cents to get into a movie because he just walked in and they called the police, is what I've read or heard or whatever. So, and then they show up there and arrest him for that, then find out later all the other, like, start saying like, oh, he must have been the one that shot the police officer, and then he must have been the one that then he did Kennedy. So they knew he was good. They showed up seconds after he got there. They knew he was going there.
Yeah. Well, how do you know that? And this may be lack of knowledge on my part. Like, you can't tell who anyone is necessarily. You can't point anybody out on the knoll itself, right? Per se, your badge man or whoever. But you know exactly who was standing on the 6th floor of the book depository shooting the president.
Right.
The math doesn't work there. I don't think. But I also may not. There's a lot of shit I don't know about this stuff. So,
No, you're right.
Funny.
No, I agree with you. And
he was set up before this ever even before the assassination. He was already going to take it for the team, so to speak. And
do you think he knew that though, Brian? Do you think he knew that that's what was happening, or you think he got completely bamboozled at the end of the
day? I feel like he figured it out pretty quickly because his name was broadcast almost immediately.
Yeah.
When people had no idea about anything, his name was already being broadcast on the news. So when he heard his name, that's when he started taking off. That's when he tried to hide in the theater.
Yeah.
And there was all this chaos and confusion, and all of a sudden his name is being broadcast. Yeah, that's fishy.
But he even said that, didn't he? Say that when they were walking him, when they arrested him, he said, I know nothing. He's like, he kept saying like, I know nothing about what I did or what they're accusing me of, and then he said, I only know of what I heard my name on the news. I think he even said that, like, he heard his name. And I don't know if he admitted to killing Officer Tipton or not. I don't.
Tibbetts. Yeah.
Tibbetts, sorry.
Yeah.
I don't know if he admitted to that or not. I don't.
No, he didn't. And also, there was.
He said he did. He said
there was a lady who was one of, like the the looky-loo sort of neighbors.
That's me.
She looked outside and she said there was 2 men in a car, and he was not one of them. So these 2 men in a car they're the ones who supposedly killed Officer Tibbetts.
Yeah.
So like the neighborhood Karens were on the lookout.
Yeah. Or Taryn, because that's me. I'm always looking. My neighbors will tell you. I'm always like, the police. Like, what's going on there? But yeah, so I remember him saying, he said, I've shot no one. I remember him saying that, you know, and after he found out, he said, I'm just a patsy. He kept saying that, like, I'm just a patsy. That's all he said. And they never gave him a chance to say a word.
They couldn't, I'm guessing.
They didn't stop. They didn't let the camera, you know, nobody asked, you know, well, they were asking him questions, but he was, yeah, you know, and you could tell he wasn't lying, you know?
Yeah. That's why he was silent so quickly.
Yeah.
It's like a do not pass go, do not collect $200 type scenario.
Which is why I think another reason is that, you know, that that he didn't know what was going on until that, and I agree with you, Brian, until, you know, and then he was like, holy shit, you know, like, until he, you know, heard his name, you know what I mean? Then he's like, he probably was like, they used me, you know, or they, you know, then that's why he was saying that I'm a patsy.
Mm-hmm.
So, it was all faked. Yeah. I'm not sure if he believes that. I don't know which side that is, but something was faked and something was done to cover it up. Hopefully one day we'll know.
Mystery lives on.
Well, the government can cover up the investigation, which would be the CIA, LBJ. As far as the crime scene, the stuff in Dallas, that was worked by the mafia. The taking out Oswald, the uniform for Badgeman, setting up the assassination team.
Like all the little dirty stuff in between.
Yeah, there's different roles for different players.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yep.
That's and crazy. One of the things when Jackie got on the plane to take her back to Washington, LBJ was on there, and one of the books that I had read said that she immediately went to him and started screaming at him, "You killed my husband! You killed my husband!"
I heard that. I did hear that.
So she already she knew that about the conflict very well between LBJ and the Kennedys.
Yeah. Yeah. And then I mean, I knew he didn't like it, but I didn't know it was that deep.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You know? And then it's crazy that he was able to get, and who knows, maybe him being the vice president was staged way before, you know what I mean? Like, you know, even that. I mean, you see what they do now. People didn't have the technology and all the stuff that we have now, or people weren't so voiceful and opinionated and, you know, outspoken and, you know, did all that stuff, you know, it wasn't, or you didn't see it because there wasn't means to that. So it didn't really create a stir or anything like that. So, you know, I lost my train of thought.
Squirrel.
I hate my ADD. I hate my ADD so bad.
With you.
But it was the Illuminati. Joking. Hey, some people believe it.
They send a lot of friend requests, the Illuminati.
Yeah.
I get that too.
You do too? It's like, oh, come on, y'all.
No thanks.
No, thank you.
I want to thank you guys for sticking it out and hanging out and coming on. Brian, I would love to have you on. And Erin, I've already asked you, would love to have you on as well. So maybe we can set some dates and get together and chat.
I'd love to hear from Brian, all things mafia.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Like, can we just have like a Brian special? It's just...
Well, as you can see behind me, I have a whole library up here. I have probably just as many books downstairs in my office. That would have been a better setting for me. But my daughter, when she got out of college, she pretty much moved all of her crap into that office, so it can't use it as an office now.
So I was gonna hang up, but I just want to say I want to bring this up because I was gonna say I didn't know what year how the affair with Marilyn Monroe correlated with the assassination. I don't know the dates that supposedly and when she was killed. I don't know that all that. I was gonna say Marilyn. I was gonna bring Marilyn Monroe up, but I was like, now that's getting too like tabloidy. But
I have
I
images
I
of
don't
that too.
what yeah, but I don't think because I don't think
Yeah.
Jacqueline Kennedy could have pulled it off. That's why.
Mm-mm.
No.
And there's no way she wasn't. She had no idea. She. It wasn't just Marilyn Monroe. You know what I mean? And she knew that.
Judith Campbell Exner, she was one of his lovers that he shared with Chicago boss Sam Giancana as well. And
Yeah.
there was Joey. Oh, and Joey Bishop was JFK's brother-in-law. He's the one who set that up. And all of these guys had mob ties. All of these entertainers.
Yeah.
Everybody's got a guy.
Yeah.
Everybody's got a guy. Except me.
I know a guy.
I don't have
Except me.
I know a guy.
I know a guy.
I know a guy.
Yeah.
Who knows a guy?
Who knows a guy?
That's what I just say. I know a guy that knows a guy. But thank you guys so much for coming on, and thank you, like all the knowledge. I've loved and respect every single buddy that was on tonight, and I look forward. I mean, like I still would like to like talk about it. I know Chris is going on, so I feel bad still being on when he's going on. But so that's why
Do another one. Do a follow-up one.
yeah, we could do another one for sure because you could talk about this all day.
I know. Well,
You really
especially
could.
bringing the mafia in. That one's like I'm fascinated. I've just always had that.
You never
I
heard
had-
that?
I
You
had
never
that
heard that?
class on organized crime back in the 90s. And because I had so much knowledge on the mafia, the professor, he like would give the class this certain assignment and he would make mine like double the amount. And so my term paper at the end was supposed to be it was a 10-page for everybody else. It was a 20-page for me that I did on the JFK assassination.
That's awesome.
That is awesome. But I did know I never really put as much thought into the mafia end of it. Right.
But like
So-
that's how I always was. I'm like,
Like
okay,
totally
I'm
new
not-
perspective.
Yeah.
But makes
Like-
sense.
Oh, and then almost immediately after the assassination, there was a mob lawyer by the name of Frank Regano. He was Santo Traficante's personal lawyer. He walked into the restaurant and to this restaurant down in Tampa, and to meet Santo Traficante, and everybody was like high-fiving and hugging, and they said, "We got him. We got the
SOB.
bitch."
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yep. I know. And that's I mean, and all that stuff. Like, and that's what I'm saying. Like, I knew the mafia, obviously. I mean, because why would Jack Ruby just so you knew there was kind of like that connection, and maybe Jack Ruby makes it that kind of connection. Who knows? I don't know, but I do believe they had something to do with it. But like I said, I don't think they acted alone. Just like I don't think Lee Harvey Oswald acted alone, and I don't, and the CIA definitely needed the help, the street help. They had all this power help, but they needed the street help.
Well, here's another little tidbit on Oswald. He used to hand out the flyers for, I forget the exact, the Free Cuba movement.
Mm-hmm.
Has a name, but it's something like that, but not exact. He used to hand it out in front of this building that his uncle owned, or his uncle or a close relative owned. And that relative of his was a bookmaker for Carlos Marcello. And that's where he used to hand out that's where his office was for the Free Cuba, inside that same building. And there's another huge mafia tie right there, right where in the building where he worked, that his uncle or cousin or whatever relative owned. So there's another little tidbit of information.
Yeah. I mean, you can go round and around with it. Like, it's just crazy. Oh my gosh. I want to love that cat so bad. Hi, baby.
Yeah.
So little.
Okay.
Well, as you guys saw, I rescued her from traffic.
Oh.
little over a week ago. She was literally in traffic, scared to death. I stopped my truck and
Oh my God.
got out and grabbed her, brought her home, and gave
She
her
is-
three baths because she stunk.
What's her name?
We named her Jasmine.
Love it.
My
She's
little
so
girl
cute.
loves her Disney princesses.
She's adorable.
But
I'm
she's
just very happy with
super-
her.
She's attached to me.
I see. How
Yeah.
adorable. She's out.
Hmm.
That is so cute.
That's typically where she sits.
I want to snuggle her so bad.
Oh yeah, my wife got home from medical training and she has not given her up. she's
That's funny.
hoarding the kitten.
Jasmine. Does she like it? So you found her. Oh my God, the poor baby.
She was literally in traffic and scared to death. I nearly had a heart attack because I thought she was gonna get run over.
I know. Oh my God, I would have been freaking out.
And you all know me. I'm big on my animal rescue and I love animals.
Yeah.
My kids all
Same.
love animals. My wife loves animals.
Yeah, me too.
I
Poor
can handle
little
all
thing.
kinds of things happening to humans, but you put animals in the mix and I'm out. I cannot
yeah.
tolerate at all. I'm done. Can't. My husband called, he was watching something and he called me today and he's like, Aaron, he's on tour. He works for the PGA. So he called me in between something and he's like, I need you to, if you're going to start watching this Fantastic Beasts, the new release or whatever, he's like, at this time frame and this time frame and this time frame, there's a slight amount of potential abuse or mistreatment of the
Oh
animals.
yeah, no, everybody
You
has to
close your eyes during these scenes. And I'm like, this
Yep.
husband never.
Everybody, because I tell everybody, I'm like, don't tell me, I don't want to see it. And then like we were watching Braveheart, and I'm watching, and then they're like, and then the horse, one of the horses, and I'm like, why the horse? And they're like, all these people are getting killed. You freak out about the horse? I'm like, well, the horse is innocent.
Yeah.
I'm like,
Have you gone to the website? Does the dog die? You can
no.
look up any movie and it will you like TV show or whatever, and you can look it up and see if there's anything happens to animals before you view it.
That's my question every time we go to see a movie.
Oh, puppy.
If it tells me, they
Yeah.
go. I always say, that's why I haven't watched Skinwalker Ranch.
I
I
that
ask
one's
everybody.
actually not too terrible. It's minuscule in the visual.
Oh, the llamas.
Well,
The-
and the cow,
Yeah,
but
the
it's
cow.
not as that one's not. I didn't struggle with that one quite as bad.
Mm.
I just do that.
Oh my gosh! Yes, come to the camera. I want to see
Yeah,
her little
kitty.
face.
Is she
Ugh.
Siamese? She looks like a little Siamese.
Yeah, she looks like she has. Yeah, definitely has some Siamese, at least.
Does she have blue eyes?
Yes,
She might be a rag doll or something.
I was told lavender Siamese. Something. One of my friends who's big. Sorry, you can hear my daughter not wanting to go to bed.
Been there. Still as an adult sometimes.
So, yeah. So my first thought to name her was Sinatra for old blue eyes.
Love it.
But
My mom just got a cat similar that looks like her and has the blue eyes and the white fur. She named her Frankie after Frank Sinatra.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Love it.
But I figured Jasmine was a little better because my daughter
I like Jasmine.
likes Disney stuff.
Yeah, I like Jasmine. That's cute. It fits her. Well, we'll end our broadcast. You know, Krista Cesare's on, and he has a guest on, and would welcome anybody to please go watch his show. He's awesome. And Turn to Gold, I think is the name of his show, but he has somebody on every week. And I'm trying to be a little bit more cognizant of getting off before he goes on because I tend to run over a little bit.
Yeah.
A lot of times. But thank you so much. And I hope we can continue this. I want to do this again. I want to talk about this again.
Yep.
I feel like everybody that came on had a lot of good, useful information. You know what I mean? That was awesome. Thank you, Brian.
You're welcome.
Yes.
Oh, thank you, Rich. And thank you, Aaron, for
Thanks
coming
having
on.
me.
My estrogen support.
Everybody's got to have it sometimes.
All right.
I know a girl.
I will see the two of yous later.
Yes.
Sounds
absolutely,
good.
Brian.
Thanks,
All right.
y'all.
We'll see ya.
Good night, Aaron. Love you.
Good night. Love you too.
Good night.
Bye.